One of the big points of the State of the Union address last night, from that emotional plea to act on gun control to raising the minimum wage, President Obama urged Congress to act on several major issues facing the nation in the State of the Union address. So, what did Democrats and Republican leaders think about his speech? This morning, we are joined by Democrat Congressman Jim Moran from Virginia and Congressman Bill Huizenga from Michigan. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us this morning. Let me begin with Congressman Huizenga and specifically that plea about gun control that we saw there. What did you think of that, and is there any common ground? Can there be some movement on that issue?
Well, I think there's always common ground that we need to search out. My question is a vote on what specifically? And obviously you're seeing the Senate starting to take some leads and things. They've got some real issues over there, whether they're going to be able to pass a bill at all, much less what all is going to be in it. And I want to make sure that it's not just window dressing and it's not just about the mechanics, and that we need to get at some of those deeper rooted issues in society that cause these things. And even last night, the president admitted, we can't stop these things from happening. The question is what are we doing on the front end? In my mind, what are we doing on the front end with mental health and with this culture really that doesn't honor or value life? That is a main component of what I think we need to be looking at as well.
Congressman Moran, let's turn to some of the economic issues. The president unveiled his plan to raise the minimum wage to $9 an hour by the end of 2015. Your thoughts on that, and what kind of impact do you think that might have?
Tony, I strongly support that. As you probably know, you can have a husband and wife working every day of the year at the minimum wage and still not be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment in many parts of the Washington metropolitan area. I think it's time that we rewarded work so that people can have a decent life and can have a family. The fact is that the minimum wage hasn't moved up for many years, and at this point, the minimum wage keeps you in poverty. And many of these people working at the minimum wage are working a lot harder than I'd be able to work every week. I think it's the right and the fair thing to do, and all of the money that they earn is going to go right back into the economy. They still won't have any money to save, but I think it's the fair and decent thing to do, Tony.
Congressman Huizenga, your thoughts on that particular issue?
Well, obviously, we dealt with that actually when I served in the Michigan legislature as well. And at that time, they were talking about, and this was a number of years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, they were talking about $10 an hour being a living wage. And so I'm trying to figure out exactly who should be setting that and what that is. Because in the Metro D.C. area, that $9 or $10 an hour is very different than in more of a rural part of Michigan or down in Mississippi. And here's the thing. When you have the federal government coming in and dictating that, as opposed to leaving it up to the states, or as opposed to ideally leaving it up to the marketplace, that is where you're going to see actually people responding. They don't have a minimum wage issue in North Dakota or in South Dakota because of an active, robust economy. That is what we need to get back to, not just having government coming in and mandating a particular hourly wage.
What was your chief concern or criticism of the speech last night?
For me, I think my biggest concern overall is our spending. We're not serious yet. We've heard this from the president a number of times. We're going to get serious now, but we don't want to talk about having a more efficient, effective government. We're not talking about any kind of real reform on long-term entitlement programs and those kinds of things. For me, that's a key element. There were some good things, the immigration discussion that we had, the education discussion, but the overarching concern I have is what we're doing with our spending and our lack of fiscal restraint and this massive mountain of debt that's getting piled on our kids and our grandkids.
Representative Moran, your reaction to that?
Well, I think that I'm not critical of the president's speech. I thought it was a good speech. I'm glad, Tony, that he addressed sequester and why we should not let it happen. We was adversely affected in the Washington area, particularly a district like mine. I'm glad that he emphasized the importance of investing in research and education, particularly in the earliest years of a child's life. He did agree to take on the entitlement programs. In fact, he has done that in negotiations throughout 2011 and 2012, even with resistance from the Democratic Party. I think he's willing to make a big deal, but it's going to take two sides to do that. Where we're going to find out whether it's possible is with the budget resolution, and I'm hopeful that we can agree upon a budget resolution and avoid this constant government by crisis. This sequester is the biggest thing threatening the Washington area right now. I know the president doesn't want it to happen. It certainly shouldn't happen, and I'm glad he addressed it right up front in his speech.
Congressman Huizenga, if you pardon me, give me just a moment to ask Representative Moran one other thing about the pin that you're wearing, because there were many people in the crowd last night wearing those pins, a no label pin. Can you tell me about that?
That's right. There's a group of us called problem solvers. Many of us have very different points of view on issues. We come from different congressional districts, but we're determined to find some common ground, to agree to disagree on many things, but to figure out where we can agree and to try to move forward on those areas where we can't agree. We've got to figure out how to come together as a Congress and not stay in our respective corners just yelling at each other. And so this is a group called No Labels Problem Solvers. I hope that we can advance at least some initiatives, and we're going to make the effort, because the American people are certainly deserving of that kind of effort on the part of...
Well, Congressman, we certainly thank both of you for spending some time with us together and with us this morning to share your thoughts on the State of the Union. Congressman Jim Moran and Congressman Bill Huizenga, thank you both. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Allison.